All right. Monday again.
It is.
That was my fault.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're yelling over the compressor.
Yeah, I know.
You'd think I'd get better at this by now, wouldn't you?
Well, you think I'd get better too, but I still get yelled at.
Oh,
Hey.
Snicker.
Hey, we're powering speed. 908-751-0211.
And like our fan page. I'll start with that. Because you can actually chat on there. We don't have to monitor it. And then like us on Facebook, like us on iTunes. So what?
This is
a lot of pressure involved.
Hold
over
on.
there.
No,
it's
there actually was some
torture.
pressure, and I'll tell you why.
Go.
Because somebody had said to Tad,
The same thing over and over.
like, you always say the same thing over and over, blah, blah, blah. And Tad's like, you don't understand. He's like, Michael yell at me if I do something stupid.
Yeah,
And
if I go off track.
I was like, Tad, if you make the appropriate points, I don't care. But the problem is there's a derailment that occurs.
I went off script, man, you know.
So, all right. First piece of information. At some point soon, the Team 260 guys, you have to say 260,
Yep.
will be calling in.
Team 260.
Yes. To talk about what race, Tad? Tad?
He doesn't
Yes.
remember now?
No.
That was 3 minutes ago.
There's 3 minutes ago that you explained nothing then. So
All right. So here's what's funny. I got to explore this. That's why I
Go
told
ahead.
you to stop.
I know.
I have to
I know.
explore this. Now, anybody that's been listening to the show for any period of time, the Team 260 guys are having a race called Neglection that they've scheduled now and tanked like 2 or 3 times.
Yep.
And it was on a no prep, like an old racetrack that was abandoned, like wasn't used, and they'll get into the whole thing. But we've had these guys on. We've talked at length, and I said the Team 260 guys are going to call in and talk about Neglection. And I get the look from Tad.
Huh? Nobody home.
It is like, I don't know, aneurysm just occurred. It's unbelievable. This is a race. He's still looking at me like, I don't get it.
Yeah, but he's feeling the pressure.
no,
now.
because he didn't state it in that way.
I didn't.
He said the Neglection race. So I was like, okay, this could be a.
How many
myriad of
Neglection
things.
races do we have happening across the country? Or
Oh,
is
gee, I don't
there-
know.
is
We were
there
just
a
talking
band
about
of them.
Kid Rock before, and he's in a race.
Well,
blah,
that
blah, blah.
brings me to my next point. How funny is that?
But Kid Rock's winning.
I think it's Kid Rock. They released a poll, and look, I know we've got guys that listen like in the Michigan area and everything else. And you know, am I a huge Kid Rock fan? Not particularly.
But that's
No.
northern Michigan. So.
I think he's pretty cool.
He's got some stuff. I think some of his later stuff. I didn't like his I want to be a rapper but still a rocker.
I like the
kind
very
of thing.
early stuff, basically.
That figures.
Yeah.
Well, we know what the rest of your musical library consists of.
Better than yours, so anyway.
Bleeding fetus.
Yeah,
Dying. Get it right.
all your nonsense. But they released a poll that he's leading.
I know.
And the funny thing is the bulk of the people, like it was like it wouldn't come anywhere near 100%. The bulk of the people, the highest percentage said, I'm not going to answer that.
So he was like up 40. He was up 4%, right?
Like 4%.
So it might have been like he was 30. She was, oh no, he would have been like 34. She was like 30.
Yeah.
And the other 40%
Or whatever
Yeah.
said, yeah, I refuse. I don't want to answer. Now, look,
That's great.
if they don't want to answer, I would have to think that means that they're going to vote for this guy. Now, I am not by any means endorsing or saying this guy could do a great job. But I mean, how bizarre is it that this guy who has said and done just about every vile thing you could have, that he's probably going to win this election? I am shocked.
Even Nate Horgan is saying that's taking it a little too far with Kid Rock. I don't know why. I mean, the other side is rolling up some friggin' loser.
You know what it could be? I mean, Kid Rock, look, if you make it in the entertainment business, you're one of two things: either extremely talented or you understand how to market and do things. I mean,
Or you have family, you know.
yeah, or family. But I mean, maybe the guy is smarter than we give him credit for.
I mean, he's got to be smart. He's got to be pretty smart to do what he does.
I'd like to hear a little bit from him.
Yeah.
Without, I mean, I'm not endorsing him, guys. I'm not.
That'll happen, though.
Bizarre.
Yes.
More than bizarre.
So Wookie from Wookie 77, I have no idea who that is, but does he really have a Pinto? Is that true?
Well, if he said it, I don't know. You're reading a thing, not me.
Yeah, I know.
Got a problem with Pintos?
Oh, and Jeff needs his cartooned. He's asking me on the chat room.
Yes. Well,
He's
Jeff,
got my cell phone number.
Jeff, I gotta hate on Jeff a little bit too. It was kind of, he said to me, I said, "Hey, how's the car tuning going?" He's like, "Man, I ain't heard back from the guy yet."
From who?
From the tuning guy that can do that.
To
get it running tune, and then he's gonna get it running, then he's gonna take it to your guy. And I had
why doesn't he just tow it onto the back of a truck and take it to my guy? I mean, that's the better way to do it.
I don't know. I've never done this, so it's hard for me to say what he should really do. But I said to him, I said, "Well,
he's listening, so he just heard me."
I said, "Well, the guy hasn't called you, or the guy hasn't called you back." He's like, "No, email." I said, "Did you call him?" He's like, "No, let me try." And he called me. He's like, "Good call on the phone call." So at least he talked to the guy. So he has something coming, I guess, from a tune. So he should be on the road soon, I hope. And I'm not bashing you, Jeff. I just think the whole situation was kind of funny because it's today's world.
Yeah. Is it a mail order tune?
Yeah, it's that kind of thing.
Yeah, I would.
Nobody picks up the phone anymore.
I know.
And I mean, if people
text each other, but
if people call me like for work and they're like, "Wow,
you answer the phone."
Yeah, they're shocked. That's where we are.
Well, I posted a video on our. We'll get to Adam, but I just want to say, I posted a video on I think our site and on my site and everything. This guy talking about how fucked up we all are because of social media, and I don't want to get into it. It was just pretty cool because he did talk about that nobody talks to each other. It's all fucking texts and.
No, and I find it amazing, and it even happens to me. Well, let's talk to Adam first. Adam
260.
What's up?
Hey guys, how's it going? How we doing?
Adam,
Yes,
he should be there.
Can you hear me?
Crickets.
why don't we have a crickets?
I don't know. Lines in, and it ain't muted.
Can you guys hear
It
me?
ain't me.
Maybe it's him.
Here, I'll call back.
Let's try again. Adam, you there?
Hear something?
I hear him.
I don't hear him.
Maybe you just put the phone down and walked away.
Fail.
All right, he's gone.
Oh,
I don't know what's going on, and I don't believe it's us. I'm checking something here. Adam, hang on real quick, buddy.
I heard something like he was putting the phone down or something.
Fudd said he heard him,
He heard him? Oh, so we just don't hear him?
but that's Fudd. He might hear voices in his head.
All right, let's try again.
The tinnitus.
Yo, buddy, you there?
Yep. I can
Ah.
hear you now.
That was really weird. I mean, there was nothing. I didn't change anything on the board. I don't know where the hell he was.
260.
I can hear you guys.
260.
Could you explain to our co-host here exactly who you are, and for everybody else that never heard you?
Yeah, no problem.
Which is Tad.
What the heck? Guys, he don't know what's going on, man. He needs to get on that Facebook and don't talk to people. Just get on Facebook and read shit, right?
Dude, he was here during the shows that we talked to you about this.
Mike doesn't put your name first. You just go. He just mentions the race. That's it.
Here's what I just heard. Blah, 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 blah.
And blah blah blah.
So, are you finally going to be able to get this race going? Tell everybody about it.
Yes. The weather looks like pretty much spot on. I mean, it's going to be low 80s and pretty much sunny. So we're blessed. Very happy about the weather change now. It looked a little sketchy last week, but now we're looking good.
All right. So, where is it? What's the details? And how did this whole event come together?
Yep. So this is it's Team 260 Neglection No Prep Race. And it is at Lyons Raceway, which is in Lyons, Indiana, which no one's ever heard of, especially. But it's about an hour south of Terre Haute and about an hour and a half south west of Indianapolis. And it's a little track that has been around since it's kind of a new track in the world of drag racing. I mean, like 1996, I think it was built, and it changed owners a couple times. And the newest owner, Brent Jones, who actually also owns JR1 Racing Oils, he bought it, I think, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. When he did, he kind of redid the whole place. I mean, he ground the whole track surface down smooth, built a bunch of nice ET buildings and welcome buildings and all this stuff. So the place is like a brand new facility, but he struggled the last couple of years with the bracket racing stuff and just making money off of it basically. And he's a little track, and it's in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it's in the cornfields literally of Indiana, next to a big ass turkey farm, and it's just him and the turkeys for about ever. So, because of that, it's hard to get fans out there, and that's what kind of pays the bills on this stuff. So, for us, it had been closed down 10 months, and Nick, who normally is with me on here, he's tied up tonight, but we wanted to put on like the most legit street race kind of deal we could ever do. We have a lot of guys around here that want to be, street racers. The TV shows get them all pumped up. They think they're big street racers and shit. And all they're really doing is just sitting out, causing accidents and racing minivans on the highways and just getting themselves into trouble. And so we wanted to kind of challenge these guys and put something on that would challenge them to come to the track. And, you guys talk a lot of shit on Facebook and stuff about how you're street racers. We'll come to the track where it's going to be pretty much a street surface and let's see what you got. And we wanted to do it on the actual street initially and just logistically couldn't make it happen. It's hard to find a place. The TV guys can do it. They can rent everything out and close it all down and pay everybody big dollars, but we didn't have that ability. So we looked at some airports, and the FAA isn't very friendly to this kind of activity.
Well, I mean,
they hate it.
the actual fact that any of those airport events happen anywhere is amazing to us at New Jersey.
They only happen in conservative states.
Ours kind of is. We got screwed. We talked to one local airport, and honestly, if it had been a year prior, we probably could have slid it in. But they had a mile event there the year before last year, and it wasn't very well organized, and it just quite didn't have all their I's dotted and their T's crossed. And so the FAA ended up very unhappy because they just broke a bunch of rules. And so there was no negotiating with us. They pretty much said, you guys, no way.
Yeah, I wonder if it's getting harder to do those events all of a sudden.
Probably. Especially with the TV shows.
Like it is.
It's not harder in Texas or Florida or Georgia.
I don't know if they have
Mexico.
private ones because maybe they're private airports, because we talked to a couple private airports.
No, but they're still regulated by the FAA. If you take off into airspace, they're regulated by the FAA.
Yep. So we ended up just totally by accident coming across Lyons. I'd never been there before. Nick had been there a few times, and just come across them that, hey, this place hasn't been open for almost a year. It's got grass growing everywhere where it shouldn't, and it looks abandoned. So we went down in the middle of the wintertime and checked it out, and it was like perfect. This place, it looks like an abandoned track in the middle of nowhere. It looks like a bare street. Cars have been going down it. So we said, this is what we want. And that's kind of where the Neglection name comes from. It's the whole idea of it hasn't been touched at all for all this time. And it's just like going to an abandoned airstrip or an abandoned drag strip and just putting cars down the track at that point.
Are you going to blow it off at all?
Yeah. So here's what will happen with it. And the scope of things have changed a little bit, mostly because of the rain date. They had a couple of other events that were special events they had scheduled, but they were going to be after us. But because of our rain out, they ended up happening before us. So what we're going to do is scrape the track down, and I want to try to get it basically to concrete, because the concrete is actually more safer for us than to have any amount of rubber on there, especially for our water burnout style deal we're doing. And so we'll blow it off. We'll scrape it down. We'll blow the track off, and then we're actually going to spray at the in the shutdown area. We'll actually spray prep in the shutdown area, and that was kind of suggested to us by some good people that do a lot of no prep racing out west. And they said, man, that's where most of the accidents happen is on the other side of the stripe. It'd be a good idea if you guys sprayed out there. So at least once you get past the stripe, you get into something that might be a little stickier and the car, can maybe be able to get control a little easier if they're getting out of it some. So
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yep. So that's kind of the maintenance that is going to go into the track. We are lucky that Brent has a lot of good equipment at the facility. So if we do get somebody that smashes into the wall or breaks, oils the track down, he has the equipment we need to clean the oil up, get the track back up to, a clean state and running again. So it'll be interesting. I want to preach to the guys that do come to, everybody wants to, that they all think they're drivers and we all think we're the best driver and we can't lose control of a car, but it happens quick, especially the faster you are. And last thing you want to do is be peeling these guys off one after another off the wall,
Yeah, especially with the smaller tire stuff. I mean, that's the smaller tire and now the power levels that are very commonplace. I mean, we've talked about it a bunch, and I think we even talked about it with you guys. You've got things now. How much you make? 1,000. Really? That's it? What's wrong?
Yeah, I know. It's like commonplace.
It's getting nuts.
Hey, are you gonna allow a crowd around the starting line?
We are. We have a little area called Gamblers Row, which is so when I say starting, I mean behind. It'd be more the burnout box area, let's say.
Yeah,
and that's a VIP crew specific deal. next to the actual track surface, there's a nice concrete walkway that he built mostly for like golf carts for guys for race cars. They can take their golf cart down, and after the car goes to pick them up. And we have an area marked off there. It's called Gambler's Row, where you can pretty much get, if you've seen any of the videos from the diesel race, you can pretty much be right on top of the car on the other side of the concrete wall, and you can get pretty close to it.
Yeah,
So
that's cool.
We'll have people in that area because, the thing about these kind of races, that atmosphere and stuff, that's kind of the aura about it. That's what makes it fun. You're right there in the action, like you would be if you were on the street being an idiot. So,
Okay.
we're trying to promote that a little bit in a little bit safer way. We'll make sure we don't want anybody in front of the starting line or right on top of a car or nothing. But we're trying
we've
to get them
seen
as
that.
close to the action so they can feel like they're there.
All right, good deal. Give everybody again the best way to get in touch with you guys or find out about the event, and when is the event actually scheduled for, rundown of classes, or how you're going to break it down.
Yep, sure can. To find out if you want to see the rules or the specific schedule and stuff for things, you can go to team260racing.com, and there's a link in there for Neglection, and we have all the schedules, times, the cost, the payouts, the basic classes we have running. For this Friday, July 28th, we're going to have a hard tire class. So that is whatever you want to bring out, as long as it has a treaded street tire on it. And so we already know a couple of cars, 2 or 3 that are at least, they're probably 1K wheel horsepower cars. They're going to put a regular radial tire and try to go down this track. So that's going to be very interesting. The all-wheel drive guys have a big advantage at this deal in that class for sure. So that's Friday night's deal. We're going to do some golf cart racing and some goofing around after that. We got a DJ that'll be there Friday night. So it's going to be kind of probably a younger generation feel. It's a little more laid back and loose. Saturday, we have 3 classes we're running. We have a True Street class, which, like most True Street things, you got to have licensed insurance, interior. It's also has to be a DOT tire, and which kind of ends up being, it's any drag radial, or I think it's a 28-10-5 smaller, like a DOT slick of some type, ET Street or whatnot. And so that class will go. I think it's like that one's $50 to enter, $1,500 payout. We have some pretty heavy hitters coming for that. We're very strong with street cars in this area, so we have a lot of guys that can compete well in this class. Not a ton of them have done a lot of no prep stuff, but they're going to come out and give it a try. The other class, then 2 others. One is small tire, which is I think it's $75 to enter, $2,500 payout. Same deal. I think it's a 275 and smaller tire, or a 28-10-5 slick you can run in that class. We have a lot of I would say local to Indiana, Illinois, Ohio small tire no prep guys coming to mix it up in that class. Some Chicago guys that are coming down, so that'll be a pretty good class to watch there. And then the main attraction, I guess you can call it maybe, is our big tire class. It's $100 to enter, $5K to win. So I mean, if you're a bracket guy that's down here, somebody that's got a big tire car that just thinks everything hooks on dirt, man, for $100 to win $5K, it's kind of tough to go racing anywhere and get that kind of odds.
Yeah, it's not a bad entry to pay out. That's pretty damn good.
No, yep, exactly, and it's guaranteed on that. The other classes are guaranteed with 16 cars, which we're pretty much already there. But the big tire, we didn't have a class minimum, and it's going to be $5K. We're going to pay out for it. And when we were actually at Midnight Drags this last weekend down at Bowling Green, I talked to Bryant Goldstone, Drag Week friend and all that. We've done a lot of stuff with him, Roadkill. He's actually hoping to bring his Drag Week Javy down to run big tire. So I was really excited about that. I thought that was awesome. I hadn't talked to him, and he hit me up when we were down there. And they're doing some testing this week up at a track north of here, 131, and so we'll see how that goes. And they're planning on bringing the Javy down to mix it up a little bit. So.
All right, well, fantastic. Look, we'll always try to promote all the races, and you guys, you've always been good, always been great to talk to. So whenever we can do this, just
awesome,
just like you did, man. Just reach out ahead of time, say we got something we got to push a little bit, and we'll be happy to let you do it. It's great.
Yep.
Great. Thank you guys for the support. We do appreciate it, and this is great stuff. We just try to keep these guys off the streets, try to keep them at the track, and have a good time, and give everybody something to do.
Fantastic.
Thanks, man.
Awesome. Thank you guys.
260.
We'll have fun. We'll see you guys hopefully maybe before Drag Week, but if not, we'll see you there.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, man.
Awesome.
See
ya.
Have a good night.
Right.
Great guys, man.
Yeah, they are.
And they really care about what they're doing, too.
Yep, they do.
So.
All right, we got a guest on.
Yeah.
Let's bring him in.
He's in.
Dave, sorry about the little hold there. I know you heard what was going on. Hey, everybody, welcome Dave. Should I call him Nitro Dave?
You could, unless he's offended by that.
No, I don't think he is. Dave Vassar from Nitrous Outlet. Welcome, man.
How are you guys doing? Thank you.
Doing good. We're doing good. We're just rolling along. How's everything down in Nitrous world?
It's a little warm here in Texas.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, it's a little warm here too.
Yep.
So.
Well, last week at least.
Yeah.
But everything's better in Texas.
That's true.
That's
Every time I've been there, it's always been better.
Well, it's definitely better in New Jersey.
Yeah.
I can tell you that for a fact.
No doubt.
So, listen, tell us a little bit about how you got started and how you landed to where we are today.
All right. Well, I started in 2001. Just grew up street racing, really, to be honest with you, and I opened my first speed shop in 2001. But before that, I was working out of a trailer on the weekends. I was installing cable and during the week, and then I sold nitrous products and just parts themselves and sold race gas at the tracks around here. In 2001, I got my first retail location, which was a 900 square foot small office inside of a shopping center, and I had all kinds of race gas packed in that place. So I
In a shopping center?
I did.
Nice.
I actually had to walk by a fire marshal one time. Not really. I think just being young and not really realizing how much trouble I could have been in. But
I was going to say, man, Texas is a lot more relaxed than I thought if they let that shit go. Wow.
they walked in, looked at the fuel cans and the fuel barrels, and just kind of ignored them and moved on.
Yeah, he was like, "Don't smoke around them."
Yeah, not a good idea.
So we opened our first install shop, which was 3,600 square feet from there, about a year later. And then we just kept growing. And I think it was 2004, 2005, we sold the speed shop and went straight into manufacturing our own product.
Now, was it with the speed shop side of things, was it like all things speed shop related, or was it just, focused more towards the nitrous side of things?
No, we did everything. We were really based more on the late model EFI applications, which back then was the Fox Body Mustangs and the LT1 F bodies and Corvettes, and it moved over into the early LS stuff. And back then I just did a lot of nitrous stuff, but we did everything from blower to turbos and bolt-ons. I actually sold the speed shop. I sold all the inventory to a guy opening a shop in Oklahoma, and I sold the install shop to my head tech there. I had 3 techs at the time, and I started Nitrous Outlet. And the reason why we're called Nitrous Outlet is in the beginning we resold all the other manufacturers' products, and so I think it was a few years after that I kind of decided that it was time to, instead of reselling their product, to do our own thing.
And it's been all uphill since then, right? You've been doing good.
We have. In the beginning, it was just a steady growth, and then the last 3 years, it was just crazy. The year before last, we were growing around 60 to 68% 3 years in a row.
Wow.
And while that sounds great, it brings a lot of problems to the table.
Sure.
Just
Scale.
managing growth.
Yep.
Yeah, managing growth and scale is
Yeah.
difficult. It's one of the biggest problems to have. And I know people always think it sounds stupid, but to grow in a scale that you're comfortable with it becomes a problem. It's not a good problem because it can ruin your business.
Unless you got unlimited money.
Yeah.
Which nobody does.
That's not the only problem. What a lot of people oversight is training your employees. I mean, we went from 5 to 7 employees to 30 in a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot.
You got to get everybody trained. You got to get QC processes in place. There's just a whole lot of learning going on, and it slowed us down from the aspect that I just worked from sun up to sundown. But now the company is actually to the point where I can I'm not standing back by any means, but I'm able to get back on R&D, and that's where my heart's at, is designing products, and I'm back in the R&D room instead of out there, trying to help bots orders and do stuff like that now.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, when you say R&D, I mean, I know what R&D is, obviously, but, most of us who aren't real familiar with nitrous would think that it's, it's pretty high tech now. I mean, where are you finding gains in nitrous technology today? If you can answer that.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So our building has a full R&D department. We put a lot of money into the R&D side, and what people don't realize is like if you look at our Stinger and our Puck systems and just some of the stuff that we've released over the last few years, there's technology still to be there to improve the overall system output and the atomization and what it's doing. We're constantly designing and trying to get it to flow. So if you look at some of the jet restricted classes, your goal is to put as much pounds per hour, but maintain the quality of nitrous through the system. And so you start running into, if you look at the plate classes, earlier on, you would run into an issue where the design of the product was your window and you had to tune around it. And so as we keep moving forward, our goal is to be able to put more jet in it before we run into those issues. And that's, as we look at all the different stuff we do, we're constantly designing new things, whether we're trying different pressures, different types of nitrous, as far as, whether it's 700 PSI to 950 PSI. There's a lot of ways of doing things on different systems that will take in, it'll move you forward as far as company to company.
And because I'm not heavily involved in the nitrous side of things, I didn't even know there were jet restrictive classes. I mean, but that's a pretty neat way to limit stuff.
Sure.
That really makes your product have to be as good as possible because you're working with this orifice. That's it. Huh.
Yeah. So what tends to happen is on the custom side, what a lot of people don't realize is not only do we offer the out of the package systems, we do a lot of custom stuff. And so some of these guys that are jet restricted, so if you look at like the limited 275 classes, they're limited to a 125 jet and a plate. And so our goal is to provide the best quality of nitrous, the most pounds per hour for the system on that 125 jet. And so you're constantly trying to machine and flow and design different things that will give them the edge over their competitor. And our customers have actually dominated that class for 3 years in a row now.
That's pretty cool. So, this is kind of an obvious question, but do you have any big names running your stuff?
Yeah, I'm terrible with names, but I can blurt out some of them. Kenny Hubbard is one of them. He's currently one of the fastest nitrous guys in that's 275. Limited 275 the last 2 years. My mind just went blank.
That's all right.
Stephen Barnett has dominated that. The no prep scene, we pretty much dominate the no prep scene on the nitrous side of things at this point. This last year, one thing I'm excited to see is we picked up David Pearson, which is known for running a blower car, and he's put together a nitrous car for Nitrous X. So we've been working with him, and Pavlar's the guy to take down a Nitrous X. So, and he's a really good competitor. So we're pushing to see Pearson up in the front. We deal with so many different aspects of racing, from the street car stuff to small tire racing. You got people like Jim Sakovich that have been pushing us for a long time, and my mind just went blank on what class he races. That's
all right.
The Pro Nitrous.
Yep.
So you get a lot of feedback from different people. Billy Stockland works with me a lot. I want to say it was last year. Billy came to me and asked me how come I didn't concentrate on the pro mod market, and I was just straight with him. Told him, I didn't grow up around big cubic inch nitrous motors. That's just not where my area of knowledge was. And he said, well, it's time you learn. And so he's been spending a lot of time helping with combos that I just don't know the engine combinations. And we just picked up Jeff Pearson and did his first intake for rear Morrison, and we're excited about that. So we keep branching into new markets, which are actually huge for us. And you end up with feedback from different types of racers, which helps you develop a better product if you're willing to listen.
Sure. Helps all facets of what you do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, well, I mean, that's quite a collection of people. I mean, one thing I know is that nitrous is very, very competitive because a lot of people do it. So it's hard for everybody to have all the names, but that's a good collection of hitters.
I think I think the thing that makes nitrous difficult for people in general is without good support of the company you're getting the stuff from. I mean, basically background and knowledge in how to make this work and make it work safely. I mean, you know, like we always joke about, oh, you're a nitrous guy, you buy your pistons in 16 packs.
Yep.
You know, I mean,
Yep.
Right.
it just happens. So, I mean, the support system, which I read specifically that you guys try really hard to make sure your customers have the information to utilize your products the best.
We strive on that, but you know what is in industry as a whole, even my competition, there's several guys out there now that provide a technical support that used to not be there. So as a whole, we're making nitrous racing look better. We lost one of the innovators this year, which was Monty Smith. And a lot of the technology and the support, there's another tuner or nitrous guy out there right now that, just like myself, everybody has his cell phone number and mine. And so that makes us accessible on the weekends where they're racing. And I really think that's the reason all of our customers are doing so much better than they were 5 or 10 years ago. It's just the technical support that we're providing to the industry.
Okay. From the aspect of the nitrous kit improvements, like, I mean, I was looking at like plate systems and the puck systems, and we actually had a customer who wanted to know, they wanted an explanation about the puck systems, like what makes them better, what makes them worse, why would you use it versus something else? And that would probably be a good thing to go over for some of these guys so they understand what they actually are.
Okay, so the puck looks like a hockey puck, and it mounts in the floor of the intake manifold, and it blows the discharge directly down the runner. So the reason why the discharge is so symmetrically even is because instead of like a spray bar where it comes in and hits the end of the bar and then you get reversion back, it actually fills the top cavity of the puck and then comes out of the discharges. And so whenever you slow that down, whenever you video and slow it down in frames per second, you can look at those plumes and they're perfectly even. And then you're going to see it in plug reading. So the advantage of the puck is just it's a precise single jet system, but you have to send the intake in to have it plumbed in. Now, if the intake has flow issues or carburetor issues, we're going to amplify that. If you got a hot cylinder, it's not like a direct port where you can adjust the jet in that cylinder. So if number 2 is hot and we're cramming more nitrous down it, just like we are the other runners, it's going to be hot on nitrous too, if not worse. So it has its advantages in an intake that is flowing pretty well. If it's a poorly designed intake or somebody got in there and ported on it, shouldn't have been porting on it, it's not the system you want. A lot of people like it in the grudge world because it's hidden. And a lot of people like it in applications where they just can't fit a carburetor plate underneath the carburetor.
Well, I mean, how thick have the carburetor plates gotten? I mean, like, and see, there's another chunk of questions, like from the plate side. Like I've seen plate size types that use nozzles, they use spray bars. I've seen them where they have like annular discharge grooves. I've seen all kinds of stuff that they've gone into with the nitrous side. Could you tell the people your opinion of what you think, what would be ideal from a plate side if you could fit it?
Absolutely. If you look at the standard carburetor plate that's been out there for years, it's a single spray bar down the middle with holes in it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what tends to happen is on the smaller horsepower tune-ups, you can pretty much put a nozzle in an air tube and feed it down there, and it's going to be okay. But whenever you get into the larger tune-ups, what tends to happen is that pot design is going to start talking to you, and your tune-up's only going to be as good as the product you're working with. The spray bars, as you start coming in, it'll dead end on the other end, and so you'll see what'll happen is it'll spray harder on the end that it dead ends in instead of the end that it entered. So then if you look at the perimeter style plates, what tends to happen is it comes in and feeds around the outer channels on those plates, and then where the discharge meets in the middle, it'll spray harder there. So if you think about that in the aspect of it sitting on a intake manifold, that means that side of the intake manifold is going to get more nitrous.
Mm-hmm.
So what we did is we took that puck design. What happened with the puck is when we originally designed it, we really didn't design it for any classes, but people started calling us, wanting us to use it in Ultra. And so I reached out to John Sears, and Ultra explained to John Sears explained to me, no, this is a plate class. It has to bolt on. They said, take that technology and put it in a plate. So we worked on designing just that, and we ended up coming up with a Stinger plate series. The Stinger, our Stinger 1 was actually just created just around the puck, so it comes in and it feeds the center cavity and it feeds out. And it didn't. As people started comparing it to a dual entry crossbar plate, and it didn't move the same pounds per hour as that. Well, in Nitrous X, people at that time were spraying 1,500, maybe 1,700 pounds per hour, and now we're spraying up around 2,200. So as technology kept developing, so was the ability of how much nitrous they could put in these motors. So we came out with Stinger 2, and the Stinger 2 had a little bit bigger channel inside the plate and another discharge. So it had 15 discharges around the Stinger, and now it had 16, and we were able to put more pounds per hour through it. Well, then we ran into a problem with small block Ford. What was happening, they like to run the CHI intake, and it's got like a 8-inch tall deck from the top of the runner to the carburetor flange.
Yeah.
Well, we got to the point where we were killing carburetor signal because the discharge comes out and it basically saturates the air intake charge and lets the motor pull it in. Well, maybe you start putting so much nitrous in these motors, they lose vacuum. And
it kind of pressurizes the intake and you lose signal.
Right. So we started killing it. And then so what would happen is the car would 60 foot and 330, and then it would fall off on the top end of the track. So we had to create the Stinger 3, which was designed for the taller intakes. And what we did is we moved the discharge down in the center of the plenum and blew it down the runner. And so what tended to happen with that is on all your big block Chevy and big block Ford and small block Chevy, it was great. But then you get over into the small block Ford where the four corners are always hot. It didn't like being fed exactly the same. So we started having ultra Stinger cones. So now we're working on a Stinger 4, which is just like the Stinger 2, but we flipped the nitrous and fuel discharges and put it at a 35-degree discharge angle. And I have literally, so we talked about R&D, I have machined over 35 Stinger nozzles just trying to get that discharge to work right whenever you start changing the way it fed into that tip.
So you're trying to aim more gas to the hot cylinders to cool it?
Well, this one's a little, the Stinger 4, so the Stinger 2, the fuel discharge was up above, and it sprayed down, and the nitrous sprayed straight across. So it would collide and break up the fuel, and it'd run down the side runners of, if you thought about discharge-wise, the nitrous and fuel would roll down the side of the intake manifold into the top of the runners. Well, it works great on the lower profile intakes, but when you get up into that taller intake, it doesn't. So now I've determined that a lot of the small block Fords, they don't want to be direct fed the same amount in those corner cylinders. So I want to go back to saturating the air intake charge where it's coming in. And so the way I've done that is we had to come in and redesign the Stinger completely and flip the nitrous and fuel discharges, get the nitrous back up on top, and give it a 35-degree discharge angle. While that sounds really simple, the way that the Stinger is fed in from the plate, it became problematic because we ended up having to put a pressed-in insert after we create our passageways. And because the plate, think about, like you put a carburetor spacer on a carburetor, a spacer right there to give time for the air to straighten out, right? Mm-hmm. And come into the intake manifold. Well, we were running into the same issues with the Stinger plate. By running that smaller, shorter Stinger nozzle up close to the channels that fed it in, it didn't give the nitrous time to straighten out, so it was spraying harder on one side of the Stinger. So we've literally invested probably 3 to 4 months in just machining one-off parts just to create a plate that works perfect for the small block Ford with a tall intake.
Got it. And, like what he said about, like, essentially dampening down the carburetor signal.
Yeah.
Talk about a moving target.
Yeah.
To try to keep fuel ratio right. Wow.
Yeah. Because that is all the carburetor does, and if you mess with that, it's bad.
Never really thought about that.
No, me neither.
A lot of the carburetor guys this last year has been going down and see a film on the carburetors on these big nitrous motors, just to try to give it better carburetor signal.
Well, yeah, because I guess it makes sense. Like, because when nitrous goes from a liquid to a gas, it's a large volume. So you have to be taking away some of the engine signal. You got to be when you introduce it. And then I guess probably displacement versus nitrous ratio ends up giving you kind of an idea how much signal you could take away from it. But yeah, that's God. And from a carburetor guy perspective, now he's got to get he's really got to get the fuel curve right because the signal's going to go away and it's going to vary depending on the amount of nitrous that the guy's using.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man.
A lot of the carburetor guys we work with are actually, some of them are going to a 4150 from a 4500. They're just trying to choke that carburetor down, which is crazy because in a lot of the small tire racing classes, you actually get a weight break for doing that.
There's an inadvertent rules consequence for you.
Well, the rules guys never know
It works,
anything.
so.
That's the problem. So,
Yeah, because, I mean, realistically, you could run an engine on nitrous and fuel with no carburetor.
of course.
You could.
yeah.
So sooner or later, as your I mean, what makes nitrous so good is the density that it can come in
Yeah.
at.
Yep.
Wow.
You just need the carburetor to drive on it from the pits to the starting line.
It's
And
a whole nother perspective to
Yeah.
think about this.
I know.
All right.
You want to ask that question from? We have a listener asking a question.
Well, that one question was probably it's probably twofold. The guy wanted to know about building a bulletproof bottom end. I don't think there's any such thing
No, there's not.
because when you could have something that's built beyond belief, but astronomical.
You could burn it up.
Yeah, well, you burn it up, but not only that, detonation. I don't know if there's anything made to handle some of the detonation that can occur.
Yeah. Well, he put bulletproof in quotes. I think what he's saying is
Reliable.
If you could hypothetically build a bulletproof bottom end, how much power can you get out of just wait, let me go back. If you could hypothetically build
Tricky question.
Yeah, I know. If hypothetically you could build a bulletproof bottom end as a nitrous motor, how much power could you put to it? He says, is there a 500 shot? Is there a 1,000 shot? And then I would add to that question, on a dyno, how much does like a 500 shot actually make? Because I've heard varied answers to that.
It's because it varies. With that guy's original question, I don't think there's a such thing as a bulletproof bottom end.
Yeah, we agree.
There's some that'll withstand more power than the other, but and of course the tune's going to play a really large factor on top of the build. So that's a tricky question. That'd be hard to answer. But as far as picking up horsepower, and that's whenever you look at, I don't care what nitrous system you buy. If you buy a nitrous outlet system and you pull it out, it comes with what I call a generic jet card. And what people don't realize is that jet card is a calculated formula done on a computer. And so that cannot take into consideration flow orifice turns, restrictions, or expansions, which will change the flow of the system. And that's the reason companies like us offer a flowing service for custom applications. So whenever you look at that jet card, it says 100 horsepower, put X jet and X fuel jet, and that's your average starting point on your tune-up. Well, whenever you go in and look at that from a horsepower perspective, you could use all kinds of different dividers. So like we use a divider of 3.6 from the pounds per hour, and that gives us our estimated horsepower. Well, somebody else may use 4. So whenever you do that, all that is the estimate. And every motor is going to respond differently to the amount of power it picks up on it. Like if you look at a boosted application, I may put 100 horsepower pills in it and gain 200 just from putting better air in there and taking the heat out of it. So horsepower numbers are nothing more than a calculated formula. And if the camshaft design and the heads are flowing right, it may pick up 150, 200 horsepower on a 100 horsepower setting on even an NA motor.
Yeah, one of our listeners just kind of confirmed that happened to him with your stuff. He put 100 shot on, and he said before that you had helped him, and your customer service was great. And he said he put 100 shot on, and the thing went 130 to the tire.
I always talked about my pickup, that old black truck, Lucifer.
Yeah.
That had this is back in the day, had a 275 plate on it. Well, that thing, it had a dead stock converter. You could turn 275 on it like 1,800 RPM, and it would rip your head off. Yeah. I mean, that's a thing that actually twisted the rear round to the point where it hit the U-joints on the. Yeah. It was stupid because we didn't know. We're idiots. I put a big slick on it, because it was a truck, and it was ridiculous. Yeah. But that's what. So I mean, you could never look at that and call that, oh well, that'll act like 275. It's a number to give people a point, to give them a point of reference.
Well, it's actually
what we push.
Good.
Sorry about that.
Right.
What we push is pounds per hour.
Mhm.
And you can't talk to the average guy about pounds per hour because it's just past what they've learned. But as we try to teach them on the tuning aspect, we try to move them from thinking horsepower to pounds per hour.
Mm-hmm.
And pounds per hour is actual horsepower speak, as long as you can do the math. So what you're saying is your card tells people the horsepower capability of the nitrous and the gas that you can flow in that given jet.
Correct. And
Yep.
then if they go to their website and click on the flow page, they can actually pull up actual flow data of that system and look at pounds per hour. And the reason why pounds per hour is also great, not just from a horsepower aspect, but if you're putting 100 horsepower pills in something and it's getting 200 horsepower, what should you be removing for timing? And so if you look at pounds per hour, and pounds per hour is always pounds per hour, it's a lot easier to jump closer on these bigger tune-ups on the timing.
Yeah. I would go a step further and say that if you put 100 shot on and pick up 200, you should look at something else in your motor that's missing. Right? I mean, that's what I would think.
Yeah.
You got a restriction or something somewhere.
And it's really common on the boosted applications, and people kind of trip out on that. And we try to tell them to start small on the tune-up, and especially these late model EFI cars with these Rouge style blowers. Those blowers just get packed with heat, and so whenever you put a little bit of nitrous on it, they'll pick up a lot of power.
Yeah.
I would imagine that gets a little tough too, because now you picked up power because of the density of the charge, because you cooled the charge as well as adding the nitrous.
Mm-hmm.
So probably a lot of calculation that the things do to figure out how much fuel it needs. You've really skewed that suddenly
With a supercharger, yeah.
When you hit it with nitrous and cool the charge that much.
Yep.
I would imagine the temperature drops are probably insane.
Yep. Me too. Hey, Dave, there's another question here. And I don't know what this is, so I apologize. But the guy's asking, has anyone fully used the new interspooler? Now, is that a product of yours?
The interspooler is something we recently released, and so if you think about the code piping on a turbo or blower car, we released a collar that V-bands into it, and it has 6 discharges across it, just like our EFI plates.
Yep.
So we just saturate the air intake charge and let it pull, or push itself into the intake manifold. We released it at PRI as a prototype, and we were just so busy that we couldn't pull the stuff that we were just trying to stay caught up in stock off the equipment to machine the interspoolers. A month ago, we finally finished machining all the interspoolers, and they started shipping about 2 or 3 weeks ago. So they should start seeing customer results really soon.
But that's a product that you developed just to spool engines, boosted engines.
Correct.
Yeah.
Just to help them spool and to get the heat out of them.
Yep.
But if you think about it, it's just a really nice packaged way of putting nitrous into the cold air piping instead of a nozzle protruding through.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
And that actually
Nozzle will do the same thing.
That actually scratched off one of my questions.
Oh, okay.
So that actually worked out pretty well. Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, somebody just asked a really cool question, and I don't know how you're going to attack this one, but it's a cool question. He wants to know your thoughts on, eighth mile versus quarter mile versus half mile and standing mile with regard to nitrous. So, I mean, I think I know what he's asking. He's asking, can you really hold the button down for a mile? For 30 seconds wide open.
You can, and it's common, but you gotta start being a lot more on the top end of the track. The longer the track you go, you really gotta start being more conservative on the timing.
So it's all about tune-up with extended
Correct.
periods of wide open throttle.
Well, I guess this all has to come back down to no matter what the additional, even a normally aspirated motor that's in great shape, it's got to be chamber stability.
Yeah.
When the temperature in the chamber finally stabilizes for what you're doing, that's where the end is.
Yeah. And I wonder if it actually does, like in a mile run where you're wide open, I don't know, for 20 seconds, it depends how fast your car is, right? Does it really stabilize? I would think the heat keeps building and building and building, and that would necessitate taking timing out if you're running nitrous, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And the correct temperature plug, which a lot of people miss, and fuel. So that's it just comes down to that tune up on the top end where that motor's working so hard.
Yeah, I guess back half tuning in a mile is very important.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first quarter is probably easy.
And for that guy that asked 1/8 mile to quarter mile, even those tune-ups kind of vary between 1/8 mile and quarter mile. And because you also, with nitrous, depending on what bottle pressures you're running and how your system's set up, you also have pressure drop.
Yeah, and I guess in a mile that would be a big factor too.
Top end.
Well, how does that actually work? Because with nitrous kits, you can essentially be too rich, correct? To like where it's damaging too rich.
You can paint your ring landing with too much fuel in there.
Yeah, Gene Fulton actually told me that a lot of people made mistakes like that. They couldn't imagine being too rich and knocking the thing.
And I got to tell a story about Anthony DeSoma. When he first started doing any of this type of stuff, he's like, I don't know why people keep breaking shit. He's like, I never break anything, I never melt anything, I never hurt anything. And then he hurt something once, and he went richer. And then all of a sudden, he had all this trouble following him around, like he couldn't get away from it.
Yep.
And that's what it turned out to be. Because look, that was kind of new then. Everybody was trying to figure this stuff out when you were really leaning on it.
Yep.
So now you've got the bottle pressure dropping throughout the entire, pass here, and you're trying to maintain. Now, let me ask you a question: has anybody regulated bottle pressure with an auxiliary source, like?
Or have dual bottles or stuff or something?
It would be like a nitrogen over nitrous bottle system.
Right.
Yeah.
What tends to happen is nano nitrous builds what we call a push system, and out of the box push system, which is great for the streetcar guys, but it matches out about 950. About 350 horsepower. It just can't. It becomes to the point where it can't stay caught up with the pressure drop in the bottle.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a great add-on, especially during the winter for the streetcar guys.
Yeah, to make sure that it takes the heat away, the heat aspect.
I mean, why could you not have a momentary valve that just switches bottles?
You mean like as you're going?
I guess you could.
I guess you could, but I think what happens.
I just patented that. I just sent that message to my lawyer.
But I guess really the reason to parallel multiple bottles is because you don't have as much temperature drop in each cylinder, so you don't lose as much.
Yeah.
It's volume. Well, a lot of people, what they don't realize is from way back in the day, everybody preached that you needed to run 1,000 PSI bottle pressure. And what people don't realize is that creates more head pressure. Like on all the bottles we do, we fill about a pound under, and we run lower bottle pressure. So on all the bigger tune-ups, we're anywhere from 725, 750 PSI to 850 PSI. And the reason why that varies, everybody wants to know how come there's not a set bottle pressure. Because whenever you get on these systems, as you start going up or down in jet, the system will respond differently to different bottle pressures. So out of the box normal packages, we suggest 950, which is great for the average streetcar guy. But if you think about that from a standpoint where you're putting a lot of nitrous into some, if you're starting with less head pressure and less bottle pressure, it has a lot less significant drop on the top end of the track. And you got a better quality nitrous going into the motor. So you may actually go faster on less pounds per hour.
Interesting. Wow, we just had a dead silence for a second.
Well, it's because I was thinking you were reading.
I was
instead of paying attention to the chat room.
That's what I was reading. Putz. You think I could see that the big monitor? So, man, we got a few more questions here that I kind of got to get to.
Hang on, I got to say something to these guys. Hey, all you people listening, we got a phone number. 908-751-0211. I spent a lot of money for this phone system, and none of you retards ever call. So have at it. If you got a question, call in. But you can ask on here. Tom will read them. Which one you got?
Well, Chris is asking. Wow, this sounds like.
I want to ask the dry nitrous question that the guys got up there.
This sounds like a way to blow your shit up. Is there any advantage to adding timing back into a tune-up towards the end of the run to compensate for pressure drop to burn extra fuel?
No.
Yeah,
a lot of times on a single system, well, if you think about it, you hear people adding. This guy may have heard people talking about adding timing back. So if you think about a lot of the single system type racing, what we're doing is we're removing a lot of timing out in the hit, or even multiple systems. We're removing a lot of timing out in the hit just to get the car moving.
Oh yeah, just to kill power.
Progressively put timing back. Right.
Yeah.
So if you look at flame, a lot of times what happens is that car will have these big, huge flames in the first half, and they'll start thinning down at the top of the track, and it's because the timing's starting to roll back in.
Right, but two different reasons. He was asking about running pressure down, and I would.
He's trying to clean up fuel
Yeah.
by adding timing.
Yeah.
That can get you in trouble real quick.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, that never sounds like a good idea.
No. So I hope that answered it for you, Chris.
All right. And I got another one here about dry EFI and dry nitrous. How do you select enough injector? And like, kind of, do you guys give recommendations on that? Or when we're doing, well, I guess probably the best way to ask this is that when you're doing dry systems, aren't dry systems kind of predominantly street systems? Like, you're not looking to get big numbers out of them, or am I wrong about that?
No, back in the day it was kind of that way just because injector and computer technology wasn't there. So you would put a really big injector in something and drivability would just be trash. Now with the technology that's there, if you have the right aftermarket computer system, dry nitrous is the way to go, in my opinion. The tunability is there, but then if you look at Kenny Hubbard, he's going to tell you carburetor is the way to go, and right now he's one of the fastest guys in S275 on nitrous. So again, it's just two different ways of skinning a cat, but I like the ability of the tuning windows on dry nitrous, and it's all really got to do with ECU and injector technology.
Yeah, and I guess that's actually a really good point, and shame on me for not thinking about it a little better. If you're now controlling the single source of fuel entering into the motor, per cylinder, you can really take good control, because nitrous isn't it kind of close to the weight of, say, air? Like, doesn't it behave very much like air in opposed to, say, the way fuel tends to behave in a manifold?
It's a little different, but it's pretty close. Fuel's obviously a whole different monster, but yeah, think about nitrous as airflow. And the thing is, where if you look at, here's what I really like about dry nitrous. I can take a guy that doesn't have a whole lot of nitrous knowledge, and you can start walking them through the basics. And with these ECUs, you can give it a commanded air fuel, and these guys will come back and it'll give them a report of how much fuel they need to take out or add in in certain RPM ranges.
Yep.
So because of that percentage of correction, it's not like where you throw the jet in, and the problem is a lot of guys, you try to walk them through tuning and they're going to go try to run out the back door no matter how much you try to preach to them. Sometimes that'll save their ass, because what it'll do is it'll tell them, hey, you need to remove 10% fuel at 5,400 RPMs or 56 or whatever it is, and they can go in and recreate their fuel maps and clean it up that way. So in my opinion, dry nitrous makes it harder to blow it up.
Wow, that actually surprises the hell out of me. Is it somebody just asked, the Street Outlaw guys running, I don't even know if this is true. They run all dry stuff and just base the fuel on the injectors that they have?
It's not all of them, but it is growing. The popularity of it is growing.
See, that sounds dangerous.
The learning curve is learning the computer side.
Yeah, but it sounds dangerous to me, because, one thing I've always thought, and I think I'm right, is that, the data that you get from your O2 sensors is in past tense. So if you aren't careful
Correct.
tuning,
it's responding.
Yeah. So you really got to sneak up on it. Sorry?
Not only that, your collector O2 is going to be completely different than individual O2s.
Right.
You can compare them, and they're completely different. So, but for your side exit exhaust and stuff like that, so you're just learning your window is all you're learning. You're learning your car and what that O2 sensor is saying. And if you're smart, you're running 330 and pulling the plugs.
Yeah, you got to.
The plug is the best source of information you can have.
Yep.
Everything else is just backup information.
Yeah, information, from what you might have blown up or burnt up. But yeah, that's what I've always thought.
And that goes. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say it goes back to my brother and his Trans Am. We heard that thing a few times, and that was a dry kit.
Yeah.
But the way we were doing that is not like the dry kits like I would have thought about. That dry kit was just raising fuel pressure an arbitrary amount.
Yep.
And now that would, handle your additional nitrous. But the ability to control the injector, in conjunction with the nitrous kit, that does probably add quite a bit of control to the whole situation.
Yep.
It does. Your earlier LS stuff, your LT stuff spiked the fuel pressure, like what you were talking about. And then whenever they got into the LS platform, they were spraying into the mass air meter. And the problem with the reason why I never liked that, even though it was popular, is if the nozzle rotated, the nitrous would go across the mass air meter differently, and it would change the tune-up. So if your nozzle worked loose, you're in trouble.
Oh, yeah, they were spraying ahead of the mass air meter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
Letting the mass air meter.
Isn't that the thing that works by getting temperature because of the amount of, that sounds a little dangerous to me. Wow.
So the technology there has came a long ways, and I think that it's going to continue to grow into the dry side. But so is carburetor technology. I mean, some of the carburetor stuff that's coming along is pretty impressive.
Yeah, we've talked about that a few shows ago. The blow-through stuff has gotten so good that actually people like using it, some of it.
Yeah, that's definitely growing in popularity.
Yep.
Now, somebody actually sent me a text question, which one of my friends that I talked to about this, they wanted to know about introducing nitrous before the turbo. Like, I guess, in the air inlet side, not in the discharge tube.
Well, we've done that. That's nothing out of the ordinary. So what you're doing is you're just getting the heat out of the turbo. My question would be is whenever, which I don't know the answer to this, at what is it going to do to the impeller shaft and the bearing? Whenever the nitrous is hitting that, is it going to throw it off balance over a period of time?
I'd be worried about, potential thermal shock. Like, it's because, I mean, that's still got to be a pretty well, controlled environment, doesn't it?
You mean thermal shock to the material?
So.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's an Inconel, it's an Inconel.
When we released the...
Go ahead. Sorry, man.
Sorry. No, I'm sorry.
No, go. You go.
Whenever we released the interspooler, we actually looked at doing into the housing. But the housing also changes amongst all the different turbo manufacturers. And there was just too many unknowns. So that's the reason we went after the turbo.
I wonder if I got that question kind of wrong, because maybe the guy was asking me about nitrous into the exhaust side.
I don't know.
I think that might have been what he's like, yes, you're an idiot. Okay.
Oh.
What he was asking.
It was the exhaust side. That's why I said it was it's
right.
an Inconel, and Inconel, the material strength of that.
I thought he was asking on the inlet side of the turbocharger, but
but that would also make sense.
Yes.
So
what this guy was asking is injecting into the exhaust side. I don't know which question you were asking, because obviously I wasn't asking the question the right way. Yeah, he wanted to know, and I've heard people do this, but nobody ever seems to really talk about it. So I don't know if it was the Wile E. Coyote moment that people were trying something and it didn't work. But have you ever heard of that, injecting, I guess fuel and nitrous like right into the exhaust side?
Well, you definitely want to inject fuel there. It'd be a backfire waiting for a place to happen. Now, maybe dry nitrous. I still don't like the idea of it. I've never tried it, but I wouldn't think it would be good.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
I'm not sure.
I was just talking about the material side that you asked about.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about the reason that I was thinking about the inlet of the turbo side is the one guy that a good friend of mine and Tad's that passed away, Danny. He did the drag turbo motorcycle stuff years ago.
Yep.
And he used to have these were alcohol, and he used to have one nozzle in front of the turbocharger that sprayed a portion of the alcohol in front. And the thing had no intercooler, and the reason is that the turbocharger actually acted as, I guess, a diffuser, and to try to make the charge more consistent. But with nitrous, in the end, it becomes air. I mean, it behaves, I'm sure, more like air. There's not like
but it would cool the charge.
It would, for sure. All right. Well, I'm sorry, buddy, if I got your question screwed up.
Yeah. Hey, none of us are perfect.
Well, he said injecting into the housing instead of in the intercooler side. So how the hell was I supposed to do that?
Yeah.
I'll take that up with him later.
Yeah. Who was it?
I can't tell you on air.
Oh, God. Why?
No, it wasn't Alan.
Really?
Oh, okay.
It wasn't Fudd. But Fudd, I will tell Fudd this. He did make a very good point to sum up the pounds per hour versus horsepower, that I would think that today saying you got a 500 horsepower nitrous kit is like saying you got a 3/4 race cam. It's not really the way it should be measured anymore.
Yeah, maybe.
Right.
I don't think it's kind of exactly that bad.
Well, we got to talk.
It's kind of
you got to talk in terms of qualifiable amounts of fuel and nitrous. So it's probably a good way to look at it.
Yep.
For your average street car guys, horsepower still works pretty well because the systems on the smaller tune-ups
Yeah.
all pretty accurate.
And you've figured it out. You've done the pounds per hour.
Correct.
Yeah. That's why it all makes sense now. The numbers are probably way more accurate now than they were back in the Marvin.
You know what also has changed?
Sure, go ahead.
Nitrous to fuel ratios. So if you think about the jetting used to be back in the day around a 5-to-1 ratio, so 5 pounds of nitrous to 1 pound of fuel. And now on like your plates, we do an 8-to-1 ratio, and on your direct ports, we do a 7-to-1, and on your dry nitrous, we do a 12-to-1.
So,
Wow.
and realistically, that goes to what we said before about hurting something being fuel rich. So you're kind of leaning now. Is this a byproduct of mixing the air or the nitrous and fuel more efficiently? That you're not trying to put any additional, I guess I'd use the term dampening fuel in with the nitrous, because I guess a certain amount of additional fuel has to keep you safer. Like there's got to be a window. And then when you cross over that threshold, then you get into hurting stuff. So what drove the mixture thoughts, going forward here, from where we started? Was it, being able to make a much better mixture, or what actually caused it?
I think that, for one, product design definitely plays a role. But I think if you look back in the day, everybody just kept regurgitating the same thing instead of investing into time to learn. And so if you look at even gas, how gas itself has changed over the years from no-leaded gas. And then if you go over and look at head design and cam design and just everything as a whole, at how much more efficient it has become. So back in the day, you would look at everything. You still look at it from this aspect, but, X amount of fuel should equal about X amount of horsepower. Well, now you can make X amount of horsepower on less fuel than what you used to think it should be.
Yeah, just because
you're actually burning the fuel.
Yeah, and everything's better.
Efficiency.
Everything's better, yeah.
Just like you could have a comp motor run at 40, and you could have a 2-barrel super stock motor want to run at like 49 because they're just not working as at the same. Got it. Makes sense.
Hey, so Chris asked another question, and this is going to be probably the last one, but I think we could answer this, but I'm going to ask you anyway, Dave. He said, what is the exact industry definition of a wet system versus a dry system? I think it's just 2 jets versus 1 jet. A dry system just has a nitrous jet. Is that correct?
Correct. So a dry system simply just has the nitrous side of the system.
Yep.
And it's relying on the car itself to add the fuel to the fuel injectors.
Yeah.
And a wet system has both.
Yeah.
Ejecting both at the same point.
Nitrous and gas. Or whatever other fuel you're using.
Right.
He said there's always been a debate. This debate comes up all the time. I've never heard that debate. A dry system is a single nozzle with only nitrous, and the wet systems are dual nozzles or bars or whatever.
I think the definition would actually be solenoid actuated fuel. That like there you go. Because obviously, if you're putting nitrous in, you got to have more fuel from somewhere. Mm-hmm. So is the fuel coming in, we'll say Sneaky Pete style, like you're trying to just run a thing rich, so you're going to put nitrous in when nobody knows.
Well, exactly. But if you're adding more fuel, other than from an injector map, then it's a wet system.
I think probably the best way to say it is that there's no additional fuel put in the manifold, that it all goes through the injection path.
Yeah. Yep.
Probably
right. So, well, listen, this has been good. We appreciate you coming on, man. The show is about to wrap up. I got to say one thing. When I was driving up talking to him, we talked about the intro. I said, hey, I'm going to ask you, where you came from. And I said, we had one guest that went all the way back to when God created heaven and earth. So I just want to tell you, Dave, you did good, man. You nailed it.
Well, my parents got married when they were.
Yeah, exactly. And I was their 3rd kid, and I had a big wheel, and it was crazy. But anyway, listen, dude, we appreciate you. Maybe sometime down the road, if people ask for you, we'd love to have you back. Do yourself a favor, plug your deal, phone numbers, website, and all that stuff.
I will, for sure. So nitrousoutlet.com, and you can give us a call at 254-848-4300, or you can even, on Facebook, you can visit our technical group, which is Nitrous Tech.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool.
So you actually do the tech support right on Facebook, too?
Correct. We have our normal Nitrous page, which is Nitrous Outlet, and then we have a Nitrous Tech, and so then it says after it technical discussion, and that group is designed for anything from beginners to more advanced technical discussions. So we'll help anybody.
That's real good. That's a good way to use social media for something more productive than pictures of cats with.
Yeah, or your meals.
Yeah. Tad. All right. Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, Dave. Good job. Thank you, and we hope we can get you back again.
All right. Thank you guys for having me.
All right, man.
Fantastic. See ya.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
You know, these people in this damn Mixler chat room really got to start calling in because I want to point out to you, collective nitwits, and if you're listening, here's what happens. I have Tad staring at Mixler. I have Tom staring at Mixler. And God forbid I take a minute and look up to look at Mixler. We have dead air.
Yeah, we have cricket. Yeah,
so
that you got to take out.
This is, and then you make and then you're like, why isn't it on iTunes today? How about I had to take out 45 coughs, 8 minutes of dead air.
All right, quit crying.
Very cranky.
Yeah, I know. You must need a fucking snack.
And I know you gotta get out of here too.
I gotta drive.
You got a nice drive.
That was a good show. He was good. I hope you guys. We answered all the questions. I think everybody should be happy.
I like the discussion about the dry stuff because that's a little bit different way than I had ever thought about it.
Yep.
I think that nitrous does behave, much more like raw air.
Yeah.
Because I think anybody who's had a fuel injected vehicle with a fuel injected type manifold that now puts nitrous and fuel in that manifold knows you get to a point and you're going to have a problem because it's not made to carry the fuel. I think that's probably a pretty neat deal.
All right, real fast before we Grey's Anatomy. That's funny. Real fast.
Who said that?
Horrigan.
No, yeah, okay. He's lucky he's a good meme guy, right? Start pulling on him.
He is a fucking troll, though. He really is. Troll pro. Somebody just asked about upcoming guests. We got Tony Paulo from T1 coming. We got Billy Godbold from Comp Cams that everybody's wanted. Finally got that. It's not nailed down yet, but it's going to happen. We have a couple surprises up our sleeve, so we got some good shit coming up. So we do.
They're so surprising. I don't even know about.
Yeah, well, you knew about those two.
Those two I did know about. No, I mean, me personally,
you take the coughs out. I'll keep getting the guests.
I'm really looking forward to Dave. I mean, to Billy.
Yeah, me too. He's gonna be good.
I think because that, and I certainly hope he enjoys himself, and I hope we can do him justice. He's an extremely intelligent guy.
Yep.
And I know that the camshaft conversation really can't all happen in one show. There's going to be a lot of questions and theories.
No, he's going to need some shows.
I mean, it's
going to be a long show too.
I know, and I don't know what he's comfortable doing. That's something we're going to have to find out. But there's so much more to the camshaft side because the camshaft side bleeds into the cylinder head side, and it gets really involved. But this, I'm really looking forward to that one.
Yeah,
that'll be one of my
one more
favorites.
quick thing before you cue to music. Somebody just asked where they could put questions for the cam show
fan page.
Yeah, if somebody on the fan page. Well, you could do it, Mike, I guess, or one of the guys that moderate the fan page if they want to make a Q&A on there, just a Q&A string, right? Can't they do that?
Okay.
Yeah,
we are the worst at social media. And that was honestly one of the reasons that the dipshit here, Tad, came over. He was
going to be our social media maven.
I've got my Barn Fine Nation, and I've got this many followers. All right, Tad, get our shit going here. And what do you want me to do?
And you don't see how they are nothing alike.
I know they're. See, this is
hit the
retard
music.
highway.
Hit the music because we're going down it.
Oh, my God.
I know.
All right, so nothing else? That's pretty much it?
So what was that Neglection race?
Yeah.
I don't...
That... If
I don't know, you're talking about Kid Rock, and then you go into a Neglection race, and
if we turn the mics on beforehand, it would be so bad.
It might be a better show.
It might be. But we probably also have to
cue everybody into what goes on.
I know.
All right. Well, we'll be back Monday next week, and nobody's on vacation, so we're good.
Yep, we'll be here.
See ya.
See you guys.